What's up, everybody? It's Will from Liberty Duelist, bringing you my top 10 personal most hated monsters of all time. Now, granted, this is my personal list, and you should all know that my Yu-Gi-Oh, I guess, history, so to speak, is kind of limited. No pun intended. Um, I got into Yu-Gi-Oh back when it was like first a thing, like first came out, back when I didn't even know how to play properly, and like Jinzo was considered one of the best cards. And then I stopped playing, and then I got back into the game when Nekroz, Burning Abyss, and Shaddolls were like the meta. So I never really played when Dragon Rulers were a thing, and I never really played when Six Amps were a thing. So my list might be a little bit biased, but this is just my personal opinion on monsters that I've hated throughout my entire Yu-Gi-Oh career. So I'm gonna go ahead and start off with number 10, and that is El Shaddoll Construct. So El Shaddoll Construct, I really didn't like Shaddolls. Like, I didn't mind Nekroz, and I really hated Burning Abyss too, to be honest. But this card made me super salty, just for multiple reasons, and I'm glad she's banned. Could she come back? Yes. Do I want her to come back? No, just because I still hate her. So, basically, for one, I hated the fact that you could summon her from the deck with Shaddoll Fusion. I still think Shaddoll Fusion is kind of a stupid card, and it's the reason why Red Eyes Fusion is bad. But also, I've hated the fact that regardless of how strong a monster you brought out, she can destroy it no matter what, because you can destroy monsters at the beginning of the damage step, regardless of what their attack power was. But also, on top of that, the thing I hated is that when it's summoned, it gets basically to foolish stuff from your deck, from your hand. And so they'd always send Falco, bring Falco back, and then establish stuff like that. And so, even though flip effects and stuff like that aren't a big deal to deal with now, like we have various ways of stopping that. Back in the day, it was really hard to stop that because you could Raigeki their stuff and it would still trigger stuff in the graveyard. And so sometimes you have no choice but to attack into something like a Falco, and they bring back Construct, and you're just like, oh, great. And then when Construct dies, she adds a Shaddoll Fusion back to your hand, so you just summon another one the next turn. So it was really frustrating to have to deal with Shaddolls, and Shaddoll Construct was one of the main reasons why, because she started all the Falco nonsense to bring back like Shikanaga and Winda and stuff like that, and sometimes Construct itself. And on top of that, the fact that she could destroy anything, literally any monster, before damage calc was really annoying. She had like a catastrophe effect that was really annoying. So, do I think that she can come back now? Yeah, probably. Do I want her to come back? No, absolutely not, because she's stupid. Like, I just had too much salt from this card. Like, Burning Abyss and stuff were annoying for sure, but I could never really peg one Burning Abyss monster that I absolutely hate. I just kind of hate the entire archetype as a whole. But Construct was one of the ones that I always remember being super annoying, because she just established so much advantage free. And when she died, she got to bring Shaddoll Fusion back to your hand. Like, you don't plus off of losing. That's just stupid. So yeah, that's why she's in my number 10. So number 9, a new recent one, is Masterpiece, the True Reiki Slaying King. Honestly, I kind of hate Dino more than Masterpiece, but this card is like True Dracos as an archetype. I think is something that needs to be addressed. They're just, since the fact that they're based off of tribute summoning, it makes them so resistant to so many meta cards like Strike and D-Barrier and stuff like that. Like, the only things you can really side against like True Dracos to be like a good viable option are like Master Restrict, Cosmic Cyclone, and Kaijus, because otherwise they're just able to establish so much advantage on you simply because of the fact that your cards they're immune to so many of the meta cards. And so with Masterpiece, for one, he comes onto the board usually as like 3150, sometimes less, but they always summon him in a manner that makes him immune to what your deck does best. So if your deck runs off of traps, they're always going to summon him to where he's immune to traps. If your deck runs best off of spells, or if it runs best off of monster effects, they're always going to summon him based off of that, to where then you're dealing with a 2950 or 3150 monster that once per turn can't be destroyed because of the diagram, and then 2, gets to pop shit during other players' turn. It's just a really big pestilence to deal with. I mean, people have single-handedly won duels just because a Masterpiece was on board. So the card is a little bit too good. The archetype as a whole is a little bit too good. Just like I said, because they're based off of normal summoning and tribute summoning, which is stuff that a lot of meta cards can't really handle. And so, do I think this card needs to get banned? No. but honestly, limiting really won't fix much either, because they're still gonna have Dyna. They're still gonna have Dyna Diagram. If they hit Diagram, maybe more too. But I mean, this stuff is still doing stuff in the OCG. And really, like, your best options are Master Strike, Kaijus, Cosmic Cyclones for the continuous spells and traps, and then hope that you don't have other stuff on top of that. So, Masterpiece definitely really difficult to get over for sure, because if you try to go into Utopia the Lightning or something like that, I mean, he's just gonna pop lightning, and then if you don't have any other monsters that can get over 3150 and he's immune to spells and traps, like, what else do you do? So, I mean, it's a card that kind of might need to get addressed, and he's kind of a new one to this list. Although I will say that he has amazing art. I always loved Masterpiece's art, and his art alone almost made me play True Dracos, and I'm pretty sure my friends would hate me more if I actually picked up True Dracos. So, okay. So, number 8 is Erebus the Underworld Monarch, kind of for the same reason like Masterpiece. He's nowhere near as good as Masterpiece, believe me. True Dracos are way better than Monarchs ever were. But the fact that he had that non-targeting shuffling ability just always made me salty, because I play a lot of combo-oriented decks, and it seemed like every time he would be summoned, he would always hit the card in my hand and shuffle it back in the deck that I always needed, and it made me always super salty every time. And it was always really annoying too when you'd have a good board and then just play Stormforth and you're like, oh god, because there's really nothing you can do about it. And then they tribute your monster, and then he shuffles another monster back from your field back into your deck, where they basically board wipe you with like 2 cards. And then on top of that, he's like a 3600 beater when he attacks with Domain. So Monarchs, they were a kind of annoying deck. I really started to despise Monarchs at some point, and Erebus, honestly, I hated Erebus more than I hated Aether. Every time I was Stormforth Erebus, it would make me so salty, and that's why he had to make this list. He just had to make it list. So that's why I had to put him on number 8 for sure. So number 8, Erebus the Underworld Monarch, primarily because that shuffling, that non-targeting removal, and then when it was Stormforth Erebus, it made me even more. I'm pretty sure Stormforth Erebus is a phrase now too. Like, that just kind of brings chills down everybody's spines. So. Okay, so number 7, Apocalypse Towers. Like I said, when I got back into the game, it was when Clean Force still had towers. And I vividly remember that this is the first ever monster that I ever jaw dropped when I read the effect. I was like, this can't exist. Like, I remember Beals was an example of that, because like I didn't even know what synchros were. And when I read this card, I was like, this cannot exist. Like, there's no way this can exist. So, when I remember the first time this was brought out to me, I literally was sitting there, jaws dropped. Like, how can this exist? So, 3000 beat stick, unaffected by card effects, makes me neg once per turn, and reduces the attack of all my stuff. And this is before Kaijus, and this is before Utopia the Lightning existed, so a lot of the times you were SOL when it came to getting over this guy. And so I remember the one time I was like, alright, you know what, I'm going to find a way to get over him. And I had to neg like 2 cards to summon a Star Eater to finally get over him. I was like, finally. Ding dong, the witch is dead. Like, I finally got this guy out of my face, and then next turn, sure enough, pay 800, Pendulum summon this guy again, run over Star Eater, and I was just too salty. I was like, what? How? Oh my god. So Apocalypse Towers definitely was a card, especially for at its time, was super annoying to deal with. Like, you would instantly lose, kind of like Masterpiece nowadays. You would just lose games because you did not have an out, and you couldn't out it. Now granted, we have Kaijus now and other stuff to get rid of towers and Utopia the Lightning, because he doesn't do anything during your turn rather than make your monsters weak and then stuff like that. But could he come back? Maybe. Yeah, he could probably come back, but do I want him to come back? No. I really never liked this card to begin with, so Apocalypse Towers for sure. Okay. So, I think this is number 6, Herald of Perfection. Basically, this all started when Cyber Angel Heralds really became a thing. I really like to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And I hate cards that don't let you play Yu-Gi-Oh! Such as Vanity's Emptiness and Skill Drain and stuff like that. And Herald of Perfection is just kind of one of those helmet decks, and it's a helmet card. That literally hates you, or makes you just want to pull your hair out, because basically anytime you see your opponent activate pre-prep and then summon this thing with Ben 10, you know that you're going to have to play through 4 or 5 negations, and that's basically how they win. They basically make you use all your resources in your hand, to where you have like 1 or 2 cards left that don't combo with anything, and then they just peck away at your life points. And I really always hated that. I hate decks that don't let you play, and their main objective turn 1 is to do like one thing. Now granted, I know every deck has an objective, but Herald of Perfection was just one of those helmet decks that I really despised for that reason alone. So, granted, you know, I main deck Kaijus in most of my decks anyway, to where I hope that I draw it, but if I don't draw it, I mean, you kind of have to play assuming that you're going to have to outplay Herald that turn, because if you waste all your resources turn 1 trying to get over Herald and you're not able to, you're not going to recover. Whereas if you, you know, wait till you have enough resources and then outplay Herald, you at least know that they're not going to have anything either. So, yeah, I prefer playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And Herald of Perfection doesn't let you do that. So, next on the list, Fossil Dyna, and this is pretty much any kind of anti-meta. This is also barrier statues. Like I said, I love to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And most of my decks special summon because that's what's fun. I like summoning like boards, a lot of monsters. And I honestly hate anti-meta more than I hate meta. Because I don't really hate meta. That's why I don't like to hate on Masterpiece, because, you know, he's a meta card, and, you know, meta cards are good. But anti-meta just kind of always came off to me as like kind of try hard. Like, I don't want to play meta because I don't want to be associated with people who play meta, so I'm going to play this to like piss you off. And that's kind of what Fossil Dyna and the barrier statues do. Like, anytime I see a guy summon a Fossil Dyna and play card demise, and like play Moonmeer Shield and like set a bunch of back row, like, I don't want to play against that. Like, why would I ever want to play against that? You have one card that takes away like 80% of my deck, because 80% of my deck is bent on special summoning. So why would I ever want to play on that? I want to play Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't want to just sit and have you poke away at my life points with a Fossil Dyna all the time. So really hate anti-meta. So monsters, Fossil Dyna, barrier statues, any one of those, no, please. I just don't want to have to deal with them. Alright, next on the list is Cosmo Tincan. Cosmos is an archetype that I never really... I'll just say it, I hated Cosmos. I hated having to deal with them. I hated the fact that they had unchargeable ships. I hated the fact that they floated. I hated the fact that they plussed off of losing. And this little guy right here is the main reason also why I hated this deck. Because he was a +1 for a measly 500 life points. Send cards to the graveyard to combo with Call on and stuff like that. And so he set up their plays, but not only that, he also like got them out of so much crap, because it was difficult having to deal with Cosmos. Sometimes you would get their ships off the field, they'd float into more, you'd attack over those ships, they'd float into more, and every time before you ran out of attacks, they'd go into this guy and show you like crap. And so you'd pay 500, and then oops, you gave them Dark Destroyer in their hand, or you sent it to the graveyard to combo with Call the Haunted, and instantly the game immediately changed. Now you're on the defensive because this one card enabled them to do it. And it was all for a measly 500 life points. And that's like, this card was pretty much the epitome of, oh crap, I'm about to lose, let me summon Tincan after you're out of attacks, and let me just pay 500 and start this entire cycle over. Because like I said, unless you had a way of getting Dweller or something like that on the field, you pretty much had to attack over all the ships and their floating abilities, and then hope that you could finally touch their life points. But most of the times, what they would do is they basically make you run out of attack, summon Tincan as their last monster, pay 500, and then establish that advantage and establish that thing all over again. Summon Forerunner, summon Dark Destroyer, and just do all that stuff, and it was just really annoying. So Cosmo Tincan is definitely a card that I hate, and I hope, yeah, I mean, Cosmo as a whole, even though it was never really a good, like the best deck, it was always just kind of around. I hated that deck with a passion, so yeah. Next, this little guy right here. So back in the day, this card was broken. Like, this card was broken as heck, because you'd basically establish a board. You'd summon like a Blue Eyes or like, you know, a nice level 6 Jinzo and stuff like that, and your opponent sets one monster face down, and you attack into it, and both your monsters get bounced back to your hand. And that's when tribute summoning and stuff like that, or special summoning, wasn't as prevalent, and so, you know, getting a Jinzo and a Blue Eyes or something like that bounce back to your hand was a pretty big deal. And that's what this card did. And basically, you get your tribute summon monsters back, you don't have a way of getting them back on the field, and your opponent can basically go back and attack you for game. And so that's what Penguin Soldier was the epitome of for me. It was epitome of like, uh-oh, I'm on the ropes, let me set this monster and turn 2 of your tribute summon monsters back to your hand, to where you have 2 bricks in your hand now and can't do anything. And I had two friends who would always run this card. It was so annoying to play against. That's why it's so high on my list, because I remember I would side for this card, like Light of Intervention. I would also side in, like, what else would I side in? Like, I would literally game plan for Penguin Soldier, because it seemed like every single time I would lose because of Penguin Soldier. So, super annoying card. Really don't like Penguin Soldier. In fact, back in the day, I was baffled why he wasn't ever banned. I was like, this card is super good. Like, what the heck? So yeah, Penguin Soldier definitely deserves to be number 2 on my, or is this number 2 or number 3? I think it's number 3 on my all-time hated list. So yeah. All right. So next one. This guy is just so annoying, and I hate playing against heroes. That's a deck as I hate playing against the most. But I don't really mind Toad. I don't really mind Rafflesia. I hate Darklaw. Darklaw screws over all of my decks. I hate the fact that he gets to make you neg for no reason if you draw or if you add a card from your deck to your hand. And a one-sided macros is still good, regardless of what you're playing. Like, that's gonna be good. Like, it could be good against Tree Draco, in my opinion. Like, a one-sided macro is just way too good. So, Master Hero Darklaw, I mean, heroes could honestly, well, maybe not with Lynx, but before Lynx, heroes I think could actually take Tree Draco just because of Darklaw itself. It stops those things in the graveyards from popping off, and then on top of that, he's going to make them neg if they add a card with Diagram or something like that. But, yeah, Darklaw, I hate the fact that he's one-sided macro. I hate the fact that, he makes you neg. And then on top of that, they always, protect him with a bunch of back row with Toad or Frasia, to where, Heroes in itself is like a deck that I never like playing against, because it's always Darklaw deck. They always just want to bring out Darklaw and sit on Darklaw. And Darklaw is a big pesterance. Like, he shuts down a lot of my decks, to where I really just hate having to deal with it. Anytime my opponent turn 1 activates a hero lives, immediately, like, I'm contemplating scooping right there, because I just hate Master Hero Darklaw for those reasons. So I'm pretty sure a lot of other people hate Darklaw. Yeah. Alright, number 1. Easily my most hated Yu-Gi-Oh card is Magispector Unicorn Corrine. This guy has made me scream at the top of my lungs. This guy has made me... Like, Magispector Unicorn Corrine was the epitome of a card that I felt was way too broken, especially when pendulums were not even hindered by Link summoning or anything like that. Untargetable, can't be destroyed by card effects. During either player's turn, can just bounce a monster by returning him or himself or another card back to the hand. So sometimes they wombo with Skullcrow or something like that. That was just way too good, because for one, you can't strike it because it can't basically. Well, you could strike it, but it's just going to stay on the field because it can't be destroyed by card effects. You couldn't Raigeki it because it can't be destroyed by card effects. You could Kaiju it, yeah, but then it's just going to be Pendulum summoned back the next turn, and you couldn't even, like, realistically, back when this card was a thing, the only way to actually out it for good was negate its summon with a Solemn Strike or Solemn Warning. That was really the only way to out it. Otherwise, you would have to just kind of play through Corrine, and it was really hard to play through Corrine because you'd have to establish something, and Pendulum decks were already really good at establishing a lot of advantage. So you already had to imagine having to pay through one Corrine, and yeah, you could Kaiju it, but like I said, you're having to waste a Kaiju on a Corrine, that's just going to get Pendulum summoned back the next turn. It shouldn't be like that. Kaijus are meant to, permanently spot remove like a Masterpiece or a number 38 or Cyber Dragon Infinity. They're supposed to permanently get rid of those things, whereas this thing goes back to the extra deck. That was the thing that was always the most annoying, is that when you'd actually destroy it or get rid of it, it would go back to the extra deck and be Pendulum summoned back the next turn. Untargetable. Couldn't be destroyed by card effects. Like, I just had so many issues with this card. And I remember when it got limited, I was like, why is it limited? Like, people are just going to run 3 Bumbuku, and what did I say? Yeah, people running Bumbuku, literally just because they could search out this card with Bumbuku. And that was why they ran it, because this card is so good. Like, Pendulum decks knew that they had to have Corrine in their deck. Even if it was an out of 3, they were going to add 3 Bumbuku to make sure they could summon it. And so Corrine, I remember when it finally got banned, I was the happiest person on earth, because I was like, yes, absolutely, this card deserves to be banned. This card is way too good, way too unbalanced. Like, and I remember when it got limited, I was pissed off. But am I glad Corrine's gone now? Absolutely. And do I think Corrine should come back? No, absolutely not. Even with Link Summoning, like Corrine, the design of this card is just really stupid. So yeah, I literally still have footage of me screaming up at my top of my lungs having to deal with this card. I'm not gonna post that because like it's not worthy of being posted anyway. But man, Corrine, I am so glad that he's gone, and I'm so glad that he. For those of you who never had to deal with Magispector Unicorn Corrine, you are blessed. You are blessed, forever blessed, because this card back in the day was just such a pestance to have to deal with in Pendulum decks. Anyway, so yeah, that was my top 10, guys. Let me know what you guys think, and if you guys probably... I'm sure a lot of people actually like these monsters. If you like Corrine, you are a Pendulum player. I'm just going to say that. So, yeah. Anyway, feel free to like and subscribe. See you guys in the next video.